he kind of like holding me in a certain way so I don't see myself in the bed. And so I turn and I push him on the side, and I see my body lying in a bed. And I go, oh no, I'm dead. So I sit down and cried and feeling sorry for myself. And my friend grabbed me and says, get up, sissy, you know. And he started teasing me. And I said, no, you're not dead. I just came to show you something. And I says, well, you want to see it or not? And so I was curious. So well, if he came to show me something, take me. So he walked next to our bed. There was a sliding closet. And so he slid the closet open and stuck his hand in the closet and separated the clothes on the side, parted the clothes on the side. And when he did that, and a back wall disappeared, and a hole, a tunnel in the closet appeared.
I'm here with David Wallace today. David is an author, retired teacher, Reiki master, remote viewer, psychic reader, and spiritual coach. He was born on the island of Molokai and immersed in Hawaiian culture and practices. His spiritual gifts suddenly appeared following an accident and near death experience when he was only 5 years old. This was the first of 4 near death experiences he survived during his lifetime. Profound changes in his life accompanied each of his NDEs, from seeing and speaking with spirits to enhancing his clairvoyance. He learned to add discipline to his new gifts by becoming a Reiki master and trained remote viewer. With these disciplines, he can now access his abilities on demand. David, it is a pleasure to welcome you to my podcast. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm really excited to talk to you today.
Well, aloha and mahalo.
And well, my viewers are interested in near-death experiences. If you want to go ahead and start with your first one, do you think your first one is the one that feels right to start with?
I guess.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, and that's it. My first near-death experience is the one that people ask me the most about because it happened when I was 5 years old, and they asked me, Dave, how can you remember something that happened when you were 5 years old? And I said, honestly, um, most of the things that happened when I was five, some of it I was aware of, and some of it, because there are changes that happen um, with me, is seeing different things that I do recall. But the near-death experience and the descriptions that I had didn't come back to me fully until my most recent near-death experience, which took place in 2010. Because in 2010, I was taken back to the same place where my ancestor held me and kept me safe when I was 5 years old. So it's that latest experience that I had that once I got into the room and environment, I remembered everything that happened when I was five, because it was the same place and the same ancestor that was holding me in, and demons were kind of like pressed around trying to get at me. The same thing, and the same fears that I had as a 5-year-old were awoken. And I said, this is really familiar to me. And my answer says, yeah, you remember when you were a little boy? And we sat and that's why I remember this first near-death experience by experiencing again. This time I was in my late 50s. So yeah, so the first near-death experience occurred um, when my brother and I was 5 years old and my brother was 10 years old, and we were playing in a back seat of the old car, our old car. And the old cars before, to open the door, you reach onto the handle and you pull down. Yeah, not pull up or pull out, you push down. And so my brother kicked me from one side of the car to the next. Right when my aunt, who was driving the car, was making a turn on the road. So I reached out and grabbed the car handle and pulled down, and a door flew open and sucked me out of the car. So I flew out of the car, and I remember being airborne, and I don't remember hitting the road. But before I could feel any pain, I felt myself floating above the road, above the car, looking down. And that's when I saw my body lying on the road. And so there was my body lying on a road, and I'm hovering above and looking around, and my brother comes running out of the car crying, calling out my name. And my aunt, who was driving the car, comes running out, and there are a couple carloads of people behind us that stopped to come and check me out. But while I was floating in the air, I looked around and I knew where I was. I was really close to home, and there was a pasture and gulch area near where we live, but the colors were different. They're vibrant, and there was a lot of different energy there. And as I looked into the fields, I could see the shadows in a human form. And they were kind of like hovering and coming towards me, and they made me afraid. I was scared. The other human beings that were there, I knew who they were, I knew their names, and I was trying to call them. But the shadows, I didn't know what it was, so I got scared. And as soon as I started feeling afraid, I started floating further away from where my body was, and I felt someone wrap their hand around me from the back and pull me in close. And so when I looked back over my shoulder, it was a Hawaiian man, huge Hawaiian man, and he kind of like pulled me in, and he looked at me really very kindly. And the next thing we know, we're flying through the air at super speeds, and things just flashing by, flashing by, flashing by. And it seemed like we were gone for quite some time, until we came to a area that looked like a plateau, but there was a light, and there's a kind of like a light source in the middle of this rock formation. And that's where we headed. We headed down this light source, and it was a long, long, skinny tunnel, and we flew down into it until we reached the bottom. And at the bottom was a small room. And you see this shoji screens back here, the way it's kind of like paneled. That's how the room looked like. It was paneled, and each of the panels had a door and a window where you could look outside. And so I'm sitting over there with this huge man, and he's not saying very much, but I'm yakking and I'm asking him all kinds of questions. Where is this space? What is this space? Who are you? Just why am I here? And so he very patiently answered my question. He told me I was in a safe place. And the reason why I was taken there is that I was afraid, is to keep me safe. And I didn't understand at the moment what he was trying to keep me safe from. And as we started to converse, I heard people from the outside, human voices calling my name, David, David, David. And so they're trying to attract me, they're trying to attract me to come out. And so I stood up and tried to go to the door and open the door, and my ancestor just grabbed me and he pulled me back and says, "No, you don't want to go out there." And I says, "Why not?" You know, and I looked at the people that were right by the windows. For me, they looked like they were family members. They looked familiar, and they kept on calling me and inviting me, come be with us. And so my my ancestor asked me, Dave, what's wrong with the picture? And I says, "What's wrong?" So I had to look at the faces that were pressed up against the window. And as I looked at them, although they looked like my family members, they weren't. Yeah. And so he asked me, anybody missing? Anybody dead that should be here? If they're your family members? And I looked around and says, yeah, my great grandparents. I know how they look like. So they're not here. And take a look at it, listen to the name they're trying to call you. Some are calling me by my Hawaiian name, some of them were calling me by my first name, David. And I says, they're using my wrong name. I said, "Well, what name do your family members call you?" David John. So nobody was calling me David John. So it says, "Are these your real family members?" No, they're strangers. And as soon as I made that decision, the faces of these spirits outside changed. They became demons and they became angry and started pounding at the doors and demanding that I step out to join them. And right when I made that realization, and I said no, and kind of like backed away from the door, and I joined my ancestor, and I said no. There was a source of light that was feeding us. It got brighter, and it got so bright it shined outside the window, and where I could see not only the creatures that were there, but also beyond. And there were millions of these creatures kind of like groveling, trying to get at me and trying to entice me to come and join them. In Hawaii, we have a tradition called Lapu Lapu Kolohe. And Lapu Lapu Kolohe are spirits um, who are not uh, who have not transitioned. And so they what they do is that they hang around, and because they're angry and they're not happy with their condition, they try and make other people miserable. And so these Lapu Lapu Kolohe are roving spirits, and that's what was outside of this little room, the Lapu Lapu Kolohe. And once you join them, basically you're a lost spirit.
Why were they trying to get you, or was it just because they were miserable and they wanted you to be miserable also, or was there a deeper reason?
My ancestor that was in the room with me explained to me that there are things I needed to do.
Mm.
There are things I needed to do. Uh, I have a very sacred Hawaiian name that carries a responsibility. And so uh, you know, it said, yeah, you got a lot of important things to do, and to have this many spirits trying to come after a 5-year-old boy, you haven't even started your life yet, really, but for it to have all of these spirits to come after a 5-year-old boy, um, doesn't it mean something? Yeah, I must be special. So, yeah, it came to the realization like, um, I had something important that I needed to do. And, of course, God uh, was kind enough to spare me all these times.
After that, you came back to your body?
Yeah, I fell asleep after that realization where, these spirits were Lapu Lapu Kolohe and rolling spirits, and I didn't want to be part of that. Um, I snuggled with my ancestor and I fell asleep. And when I woke up, I was back in my body in the hospital. And this is where people don't understand, like, for me, this experience seemed like it lasted several hours, but it's only gone for several minutes,
Mhm.
actual time. So this is where the idea of time is relative. So my time in the astral plane or wherever I was, it distorts time. So time was either paused or went by much slower in the actual world, whereas my spirit was in a place where time either didn't matter or it just sped by. It seemed like I was there for quite some time, but not really.
When you woke up in the hospital, did the memories come back to you at first, or did it take some? Well, this one, never mind. You already said that you didn't remember this one until you were in your 50s, right?
Well, some bits and pieces of bits and pieces. The most memorable thing I came back with was meeting this Hawaiian man. I wanted to know who this man was, and was he a relative of mine? It didn't take. It took several years later to finally have a name, for this particular ancestor, and he's an ancestor of ours, very powerful Kahuna. So that was the person that actually took me. And throughout most of my life since that incident, um, when I need help in anything that I'm doing and I pray and I ask for guidance, that man comes and talks to me in my dreams. So I see him in my dreams and we converse, and he shows me what I need to do. And sometimes he will even put words in my mouth while I'm talking to people. And a lot of times when I'm trying to explain something and I get stuck, and all of a sudden, just like something uh, is in me, and I'm no longer myself, and the words just flow.
Hmm.
Yeah,
And so after this experience, your life changed profoundly.
yeah. The first change that happened was being able to see spirits. And when you're in a hospital, that's spook alley, man. Because in a hospital, a lot of people die there, and some of the spirits of the dead, they don't realize they're dead or they refuse to accept that they're dead. So they linger at the hospital. And that's what was happening at the particular hospital I was. And the sad the saddest part of the whole thing was there were 8 spirits that I saw of little children. Those are the first contacts that I had with actual spirits that I could see, and I could kind of like telepathically communicate with. And there were children that came into my hospital room while I was recovering, and they used to play with the toys that the old hospital that we were, we had one big room, and all of the kids that got sick or injured were placed in the same room. So, uh, so they put us in this big room, and so there are a lot of different kids in there. When I was injured, there was a flu going on. So the room was kind of like partitioned out, but we were in the same room. And some of the kids had toys, dolls, and things like that. Um, and the first thing that caught my attention is one night I'm kind of like having a headache and I cannot sleep. And one of the dolls from the girls, this one girl, um, the doll fell on the floor, which was okay. You know, can get knocked down, but the doll started to move. It's just like it started to crawl. And I'm over there looking and am I hallucinating or what, you know? And so as the doll crawled, one of the nurses came in and looked like interrupted whatever ghost there was. And I heard the sound of feet tapping across the floor from where the doll was and running out the door of our room, and as she passed, I could see her. I could see this little girl, and she turned and smiled, realizing that I could see her. And that was the first ghost that I saw in that hospital. After that, all of the little children that were spirits, they started coming towards me because they knew I could see them.
Wow.
So that's the aftermath of the near-death experience. Something happened to my vision. Could be the knock on the head, you know, but I could see this, and for when I first started seeing it, I had to really focus my eyes. My eyes had to get adjusted, and my mind had to get adjusted to what I'm seeing. And what I found out is that when I get a glimpse of them, I see them better when I close my eyes.
You have continued to have near death experiences. What happened in your second near death
My
experience?
Yeah, my second near-death experience occurred when I was 28 years old, and I had gone to the mainland. Well, I had gone to Chicago and Northwest University for uh, traffic school. I was a policeman at that time, and so we were up there for 2 weeks. And during the 2 weeks, I got double pneumonia because it was in the middle of winter, and so I got double pneumonia. When I came back home, I was really sick, and so my temperatures were running high, fever running high, and I took antibiotics, but it wasn't helping. So one night I was feeling so bad, and I told my wife at the time, I says, you know what, I think I'm gonna die. I think I'm gonna die. And she looks at me and like, stop saying stuff like that, stupid things like that. I says, no, you know, I think I'm gonna die. And so I went to bed, and early in the morning, I feel somebody pulling my toe, pulling my big toe. And I jump up in bed, and I look at the foot of my bed, and there's my friend standing there. His name is Bruce. And I jump out of bed and I hug him, and I said, Bruce, Bruce, so we started hugging, and I realized, hey, Bruce, you're dead, right? So that's my dead friend. in my room, pulling my toes, waking me up, early in the morning. And so I push him back. I says, "What are you doing here? Did you come to get me?" And he kind of like holding me in a certain way so I don't see myself in the bed. And so I turn and I push him on the side, and I see my body lying in a bed. And I go, "Oh no, I'm dead." So I sit down and cried and feeling sorry for myself. And my friend grabbed me and says, "Get up, sissy," And he started teasing me. And I said, "No, you're not dead. I just came to show you something." And I says, "Well, you want to see it or not?" And so I was curious. So well, if he came to show me something, take me. So he walked next to our bed. There was a sliding closet. And so he slid the closet open and stuck his hand in the closet and separated the clothes on the side, parted the clothes on the side. And when he did that, and a back wall disappeared, and a hole, a tunnel in the closet appeared. And I leaned over and looked into it, and most of the tunnel was dark, but way at the end, there was a source of light, small speck of light. And so my friend says, "This is what I wanted to show you. You want to come with me?" And I go, "In there?" He says, "Yeah, come. Let me show you something." So we started walking in this tunnel, and my perception at that time, it looked like a blood vessel, and there were veins kind of like running all along the side, and it kind of like was breathing in and out. It wasn't like something dug in stone, but it was more like living tissue, and it was breathing in and out. And as we walked, it was soft. So we walked through, and there are a lot of twists and turns in this tunnel. And every time we made a turn and it got brighter, you could feel changes occurring in me. Um, all of a sudden, I could breathe better. I felt better. I didn't have any temperature, and I felt really good, supercharged. And halfway through the tunnel, where I could see everything, uh, the clothing that we were wearing changed, and it changed into a white material that looked like feathers. In fact, when I brushed over it and ran my hands over the cloth, I could feel energy kind of like sparkling through it and giving me a charge, electric charge. And I go, "Wow, feels good." So we walked all the way to the end, and at the end of this tunnel, on the other side of the tunnel, was a um was a country scene. Basically, there's trees, there's a hill, there's a pathway, grass and shrubs. And but as I looked through, um the environment was just vibrant. The colors were just, nice and bright, and it felt very inviting and friendly. And separating that portion and the tunnel was a thin membrane. In fact, I grew up on a farm, so those umbilical sac that wrap around animals when they were
Oh,
born.
yes, uh-huh.
Yeah, yeah. So that sac, the birth sac, that's what the material looked like. It wasn't perfectly clear, but you could see through it. Yeah. And that was also kind of like going in and out. And um, that's a membrane that separated um, the next world from the tunnel. And while I'm there, I see a long line of people walking towards uh, walking towards the tunnel. And as I look, that's my ancestors. There's my grandparents, my grandma, my grandpa, they're there, great grandpa, you know, and all of these family members coming towards and standing outside of the veil, outside of this membrane, probably about 10 yards away. They kept a distance, but they were calling me, David John, come join us. And they're smiling and they're really loving. And I look at my friends, that's my family. So I started crying and happy to see them. To add a kicker, the next thing I hear is, wow, wow, barking dogs. And hey, the dogs sound familiar. So same place where these humans came from. Uh, all my pets that I had from the time I was a little kid, the dogs, all of the animals that I took care and loved, they came over and they came right up to the membrane. The dogs are jumping up on the membrane, trying to get at me, trying to lick at me. And I'm putting my hand next to the membrane and they're trying to lick and jump on me. And I call them by their names and they respond. And so I'm over there. I says, I want to go. And so I stood up and I actually pushed my way. I took one step into the membrane and I was just about ready to push myself through when I felt my friend reach around and grab me and held me by my chest. And right when he did that, I could hear from the back of the um, tunnel, the other end of the tunnel, my daughter calling out my name, uh, "Daddy, Daddy," yeah. And so hearing my daughter call me and voice kind of like keeping me back, I stepped back, and my friend actually helped pry me from from the memory to come back in a tunnel. And when he did that, and I turned to him, I says, "Oh, my daughter, my family," and I started crying because I really wanted to be with my family on the other side and with my pets, and because on that other side, the only thing I could feel was love and acceptance. Yeah. And back on this side, the only thing that anchored me here was my family, you know, my kids, my children. So I hugged my friend and I said, I cannot go. I cannot step through. And while we were hugging, he told me that he had wished he made the same decision that I'm making. He had the choice of joining his ancestor when he died or turning around and being with his family, but he chose to go. So that was near death experience number two. And some of the changes that happened after that, my my senses, my extrasensory, um, my prophetic dreams, and knowing what's going to happen next without any that came stronger. That
That was a really beautiful experience to see your ancestors and your pets and your
yeah,
family.
yeah, when a lot of people talk about heaven and the next world, they only usually talk about meeting the ancestors, humans. They forget that we have other creatures that were part of our life, yeah, and they're there too. And in fact, they're innocent, you know, they're innocent, and why shouldn't they be in heaven? Yeah, all of our pets.
When you went back into your body, um, did it feel painful or uncomfortable?
For the second near-death experience, when I realized that I wanted to go back um, to the real, it felt like I was being sucked by a vacuum cleaner or falling backwards. And so there's a sensation of falling backwards. And uh, of course, when you land, and all of us had an experience falling in our dream, right? Falling in a dream, and then you wake up and you're kind of like panicking. Well, that happened to me. But when I woke up, uh, my bed was soaking wet, which means my fever, whatever fever I had broken. And from that point, after the near-death experience, I healed real quickly. So it was a kind of like a road sign, like, hey, don't worry about it, dude. Stop talking about death. You're gonna be fine.
Wow, that's a miracle that you healed so quickly after you had just died.
Yeah. Um, and that seems to be a common thing with my near-death experiences. I it A lot of times it happens at well, except when my first one, but it happens at a point in my life where I've reached rock bottom, you know, and I need a spiritual boost, so yeah.
And so now, your third near death experience, tell me about that one.
I didn't know if it was a dream or anything, but the circumstances behind it is that um, I was a teacher. In fact, I retired as a classroom teacher. But as a teacher, um, here in Hawaii, a lot of our kids like to, on spring break or during the summer break, they like to go to different countries. And some of the countries that they go visit, when they come back, they bring back some weird, you know, weird diseases, illnesses. And that's what happened. A group of my students over the holidays went to visit Southeast Asia. And when they came back, they brought avian flu. And so after a couple weeks in school, I caught the avian flu, and I didn't understand what was happening to me. I thought it was just irregular flu, so I was trying to take care of myself, but it got worse and worse and worse. And till one day I was so weak, I was at home at the time, and I was so weak I could barely walk. And I was drinking water, drinking water, drinking water, but nothing. I wasn't urinating, and so I knew I was in trouble. So I tried to make it out of my out of the apartment at the time, and I crashed through some uh, our window, and so the yard man came and called the ambulance. But when I got to the hospital and I was checked out, the doctor said it was fortunate that I made it, because if I came in later, then I had actually arrived at the hospital, they couldn't guarantee that I would be alive. So I had avian flu, spinal meningitis, and my blood had gone septic, and my organs were shutting down. My kidneys, livers, and everything was just shutting down. So they put me in ICU, and while I was in ICU recovering, um, I had my third near-death experience. And in this near-death experience, I found myself in a grave, in a hole, in a hole, and it was raining and it was pouring. And I was wondering, why I'm in this hole and there's water coming in. And so I'm trying to stand up and trying to dig myself out of the hole. And when I look above at the top of the hole, there's a headstone with my name. I was in my grave, basically. So I scrambled, all using all my might, physical might, I crawled out. And when I crawled out of this hole, I met a man that was finely dressed. He was dressed in a black suit, black tie, top hat, and he carried a cane. And he introduced himself as Death. And so I asked him, "What are you doing here?" He says, "I came for you." And I looked at him, I swore at him, F you, and I took off. And he kind of laughed at me. And I was wondering why he was laughing at me. And when I turned around, he set 4 dogs after me. And these were big dogs like Rottweilers chasing after me in the rain. And so I'm running around this place, and I realize I'm in a cemetery. Graves all over the place, and um, dogs are after me, and there's a fence, and I'm trying to get out of the fence, and I cannot. So the dogs are getting closer to me, and I look around for a place where I could actually defend myself. And so there's a tree, big tree. And so I ran towards the tree, and just before getting to the tree, one of the dogs grabbed a hold of my ankles and knocked me down. And the dogs pounce on me, and I push them back off, and I stand up under the tree, and I'm facing the dogs, and I see them, they're all trying to get at me. And from a guy that was really sick and not wanting to live at that time, um, I felt this rage inside of me, just like, you sucking dogs. And this rage kind of like overtook me, and it changed me, who I was. And instead of being this human being, I morphed. My hands turned into claws. My face, yeah, I had big teeth. In fact, there's puddles around, and I could see my reflection. I morphed into a super huge werewolf. And I'm standing over there and I'm looking at the dogs. Go ahead, try me now. And so they came and attacked me. One I grabbed right out of the air and bit the head off and spit the head at this man, Death. And the head goes toppling down, and throw the body on the side. The other one trying to bite me on my ankle. I stomp on him. And the third one comes, I just grab them out of the air and squish them like a tomato. And the fourth dog sees me destroying his friends. He kind of look at me and puts his tail on there and runs away. And so Death comes up to me, and I'm over there just, okay, sucker, you want to go with me now? Now I'll take you on. Go ahead. And so he's over there just smiling and laughing and clapping in his hand. Says, "Congratulations." Says, what do you mean, congratulations? It looked like he got a reason to live. He found a reason to live. So right before that, I didn't care. I like I said, I was at the lowest point in my life where whether I lived or died, I didn't care.
Do
But
you,
yeah, me fighting death's dogs and killing them, you know, uh, showed that I had a reason.
do you remember what that reason was?
Yeah, my wife right now.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
very sweet.
yeah, yeah. She's a spark that kept me anchored here. Otherwise, without her, um, yeah, I think I would have become my wife. Uh, my wife is the reason why I am the man today. Really. She's the only woman I've met in my life that understands me, gets me, and she supports everything that I do. When you get into spiritual work, and if you're trying to do things by yourself and no one's supporting you, it's difficult to do anything. But if you have a companion, yeah, that understands you and supports you, um, you can work miracles. And everything that I've been able to do since meeting my wife, it's because of that. Um, sorry, but it's because of that feeling of support that I had from her and the belief that she had in me that what I had to do was I had a mission to perform. There's a purpose in my life. She believed that, I believe that, and we're together. So, um, other companions that I had, they were afraid of me. They were afraid of the things that I could do. They were afraid of the things that I could see. They were afraid of my potential, so they kept on trying to, interfere with that. But wife, no, she supports me so I can expand, and and not only with the gifts I have, but also finding new ways of applying it.
That's a gift in itself, an incredible blessing, because not
Yeah,
everyone finds that
no,
very
yeah,
special person that can understand them.
yeah. So that experience really helped me. Yeah, and it was a major, major turning point in my life. I had some choices to make, and I had to make them.
And then you have one more near death experience.
Mhm.
What happened?
Well, in 2010, I had 3 heart attacks, and I went in, and they decided to do open heart surgery. I One of my mitral valves was basically destroyed too, so they had to go in and repair my mitral valve. So I had a triple bypass surgery and mitral valve repair, and in the process they had to stop my heart. So legally I was dead for a while. Yeah. And what was funny about that is I knew what was going to happen because the doctors explained everything to me. So I went in and I says, okay, they put me under. I says, see you soon. Well, next thing I know, I'm floating above the table in this room. It's big room, and doctors are with these paddles. Uh, some of them were square, some of them were circular, and they're shocking this poor guy on the operating table. And I floated down and I go, oh, poor thing, who's this guy? And when I look at his face, I go, oh, that's me. So I was out of my body looking at myself on the operating table while they were trying to revive me. The surgery was supposed to last for something like 4.5 hours, anywhere from 3.25 to 4.5 hours. 7.5 hours later, is when when everything was done. So they had some difficulty, reviving me, and some of the things that they had planned didn't work out. So, but while I was out of my body, and I realized that, hey, these guys are trying to revive me, and I had this fear in me. And it seems like when fear is activated in me, my ancestors respond. Says, let's go take care of this boy. And that's exactly what happened. So I'm in the operating table, I'm in the operating room, see myself on the table, and I get scared. And the next thing I know, another hand comes from behind and pulls me away from the table, takes me out of the hospital, and we're floating above the hospital, looking down on a hospital from the outside. And I turn around and I look and it's my ancestor that took me when I was 5 years old. He was there. And I look at him, and by this time I know his name. So I call him by his name. I was, hey, Kuna. And he says, oh, come boy, come boy, let's calm me down. So we zip off into space somewhere, and we come back to the same tiny room that looked like this, multiple sides and windows, and he plants me down, and we start talking, and we're spending time, and the odd thing about that last near-death experience is while I was there, I got hungry and I got thirsty. Really, really thirsty. Like my mouth was dry and everything. And I asked my kupuna, is there anything that I can drink or eat? And he says, when you're here, don't eat or drink anything. Don't eat or drink anything. And so he kept me inside the room. Well, the suckers that was outside, outside on the window, they come to the window, they come into the window with plate lunches, soda, drinks, and offering me. He says, hey, come, you hungry? Come, we have food for you. You thirsty? Here, we got drinks for you. And I'm over there, said, wow, man, I'm hungry, Andrew. So I stood up and went towards the door. And this time, not only my ancestor, but this one ancestor, but there were three other ancestors that just corralled me and put me down on the ground and sat on me, and so you ain't leaving this room. And so I sat there and cried, and I'm hungry and thirsty, I need to eat. And it says, yeah, we got to remind you who these people are, yeah. And so they let me out, and but they form a barricade around me, and they said, look at these guys again. Who do you think they are? And as soon as they did that, people outside turned to demons again. And that's where everything from all the things that I experienced as a 5-year-old came flashing through. Oh yeah, this happened when I was 5. When, the last time I was here, this is exactly what happened. The people were demons. They're not real. They're not my friends. And in fact, there's cultural things, this eating, when you're in the next plane. Um, I think it's part of Greek culture too, where you don't consume things on the other side if you're visiting there, because it's one way to get you um, trapped in that area, trapped in the realm.
Oh, I never heard of that. That's good to know.
Yeah. Well, yeah, read about the confrontation between Apollo and Hermes. When Hermes steal Apollo's cattle, and he butchers them and puts the fat on the fire, and he starts cooking it, and Apollo catches him, and Apollo asks Hermes, why aren't you eating it? It says, I cannot. So Hermes, as a child and stuff, knows that if he eats food intended to the gods or belonging to the gods, something bad will happen.
Mm.
So yeah.
Wow. So was that the end of the experience?
Actually, that was only the beginning part of that. I was in the room for quite some time because there were messages that my ancestors was trying to talk to me. Um, in in the conversation, they were trying to explain to me how my name, the Hawaiian name that I was given, it changes over time as we get older. The meaning changed. And so when I was first born, my name uh, meant uh, meant a person that came from heaven. Yeah. So that's what the meaning of the initial meaning of the name. As I grew older, it says a person who prostrates himself before heaven, submits submits himself before heaven. But I'm at a stage in my life where um, I'm more like a partner in creation. So the meaning of the name changed to a person that has open communication with the heavens.
That's interesting. And you received all of these gifts as a result of your near death experience. So that sounds like a connection.
Yeah, yeah. Well, something happened inside me spiritually, or something happened in my brain chemistry, that allowed these things to happen. So, and that's why when I look at my near-death experiences and what happened after, um, it's the aftermath of the near-death experiences that are actually more important than the near-death experience itself.
You did receive special gifts after each experience.
Mhm.
Do you know why you received them? Were they a part of your purpose?
Well, understanding the name, and that's where everything comes back to my Hawaiian name. And Hawaiians believe that names carry mana and purpose. And I received my Hawaiian name from my grandma, um, my grandma Ellen, and so she explained to me that the reason why I was given the name is that she had a dream, and the dream was of this man that was sitting in council with the gods, and this man was the gods' equals. They were peers, and so when she thought of it and the scene that was game was that was created, she said the appropriate name would be Imai Kalani. That's my Hawaiian name, Imai Kalani. So basically, it's being able to converse with the heavens, and there's a history behind the name. One of our ancestors named Imai Kalani was a blind warrior, and to help him fight against his enemies, he had two ducks that used to fly above his overhead, and the ducks would communicate with Imai Kalani where his enemies were, what kind of weapons they carried, and when the warriors would attack, they would give specific names to the movement and the blow that was coming. So Imakalani would know how to defend against the person better. And so that's a communication going above, going on between heaven and earth. Yeah. Free flow of information going back and forth. So that's a real person, and that's one of the meanings behind the name.
Do you think that you had your near-death experiences to bestow these gifts upon you, or do you think there was another reason?
Well, the near-death experiences were my a way of my ancestors in slapping my head and said, "Wake up, stupid." Because like I say, I was at all of the near-death experiences occurred in the lowest parts of my life, where um I really didn't care what was going on. I was ready to give up, and surrender. In some of these time periods, except for the last one, the last one was different. I was married to my current wife, and I was much happier. But the previous ones was just like, you're gonna let all of these things go to waste, you know? You're gonna let all of your gifts go to waste without even seeing, uh, your full potential. What's the matter with you? Wake up, pack.
What is your biggest takeaway from your lifetime of experiences?
My biggest takeaway, actually, I was trying to explain this yesterday to the shaman. Um, we are more than what we think we are, as human beings. Um, we always talk about limitations. We can't do this, can't do that, can't do this. And for my experience throughout life, I've been questioning that, and saying, why can't we do that? You know, we're actually more than what we think we are. Far more powerful than we think we are. Um, it's just that many of us don't know how to apply the gifts and the gifts that we have. Um, it's just like me and clairvoyance, this clairvoyance thing. I think I was born a natural clairvoyant, where I could sense things before they happen, see things before they happen. And it's just that I had no control over that. Some days would work, some days would go. Sometimes it would be the clairvoyance would disappear completely. And when I need it the most, it's not there. There's no guide for me to follow. So I wanted to find a way where I could harness my natural abilities and make it where I control it and it doesn't control me. And to do that, I needed a form of discipline to add to the clairvoyance so that I can do things, with my ability when I want and on a subject that I want. Yeah. And so that's how I was attracted to um, remote viewing. And remote viewing was actually something that my ancestors showed me in a dream. Yeah, so they showed me what remote viewing was, and I didn't understand what was happening in the dream until one night I was listening to Art Bell program Coast to Coast, and he was interviewing this guy, and he was talking about remote viewing, and then he started to describe this dream that I had, and I go, "Oh, my ancestors showed me this. Maybe this is what I need to learn how to do." And sure enough, when I started learning how to remote view, um, I developed my own methods to go after things that I want, that I felt important. Yeah. And give you an example. This is the Florida Pick 3, and the date was yesterday. Okay. And on this side is my initial predictions and the numbers that came with it right here. So this is the initial numbers. Okay. This column on here. So anyway, see the number that was drawn
Yeah.
here? 5 of 1, 7, and the bonus ball is 6. Okay. And see what happened here? Yeah, the numbers that was drawn that I picked was 5, 6, 7. So over here, if you put the 6 in the middle where the 1 is, you get 5, 6, 7. So this won me $117. So this is using um my remote viewing skills or my clairvoyance in a practical way.
Do you, are you able to do that whenever you want?
Yeah. Uh, doing the lottery is something. I'm more successful on the small lotteries than I'm on the large lotteries. So you go after the one that you win with the most, yeah.
Do you teach others how to remote view?
Yes, I do.
How can people find you if they were interested in learning that?
I'm available on anybody can reach me on Facebook, Kahu Dave, KAHUDAVE. Yeah. So that's one way. That's the best way actually to get in touch with me.
Perfect. Is there anything else that you want to touch on that we missed?
No, actually, the other things too that came out really strong after my near-death experiences, you know, these these things that I do with lottery numbers and things like that is fun. On the serious side, um, I've also helped people heal. So I've had some really interesting experiences healing people, um, seeing people moving their limbs after they're declared. The doctors feel they're paralyzed. They can actually move their limbs, you know, things like that. So um, just having faith in that, your ability.
And that's through remote viewing.
Actually, it's just using my money and my imagination.
Oh, one of
Yeah,
your gifts.
manifesting things. Yeah.
Well, that's wonderful that you're able to help people heal, changing
Yeah.
lives. Do you have any last words of wisdom for my viewers?
Well, yeah. Don't be afraid. Yeah. Don't be afraid. A lot of us, when we begin learning something, we're so afraid to make mistakes. But for me, as a practitioner, doing the lottery, I just showed you something wonderful and neat that I won. But I have tablets full of my failures. Yeah, don't be afraid of failing because failing is part of the learning process. And even when you fail at any type of attempt that you're making, especially dealing with your intuition and trying to project something or see something in the future, you may get the information wrong, but what you got right is that you're allowing your mind and your spirit to be free to explore, you know, and that's where you win. It's being trusting yourself, where you can allow your spirit and your consciousness to go out and explore. And if they come back with the wrong information, well, maybe we're just dialing in at the wrong time. But what you're doing is that you're making the attempt and you're making the connections. So don't afraid of being making mistakes. And if you want to see mistakes, I got tons to show you.
Yeah, they say fall down 7 times, get back up 8, something like that. I love that advice. That is solid advice. Thank you so much. And thank you for sharing your stories. You've had a remarkable life and lots of beautiful gifts and lots of beautiful people in your life. So I appreciate you.
Yeah, well, it's been blessed, and thank you for inviting me to share on your program. I appreciate it.
Thank you for being here. I just want to tell you how much I appreciate you being here and supporting my channel. If you haven't already subscribed, please consider subscribing if you enjoy near death experiences and other spiritually transformative stories. It helps the algorithm know that this information is useful and push it out to more people. And that's the goal, to get as many people to know that we are eternal spiritual beings and that we never die. Our bodies might die, but our essence will never die. And I want people to live with less fear. Let's all spread the word. Like, comment, subscribe, share, hit that little notification bell so you get all the notifications when my videos post. Thank you for all of your support. I'm sending love to you.